You say what you like say from the morning we are discussing a lot of ITS and data. Uh, what we insist for that like say the standardization of this transit data is very important. Particularly when you want to improve your service and even like say morning, one of the speaker rightly say there will be the n number of data, n number of options, particularly Mr. Sinha from the MOUD was like saying for that what are the real and right option to choose the data and how you can do that. So in here, we have the very good and eminent speakers with us. We'll discuss about the standardization and how we can use that data to improve our services, particularly in the various covering the various aspects, and it has a wide range of that. I invite Ms. George from the WRI, Nisa Thompson, Anand, Neeraj, and this is a very interesting theme session because after this session there will be our like say group activities. This is followed by this session where our like say the intention and whatever we collected the result and what we learned from morning to this up to this session, we'll try to make our own case study on that. So please, I will not take you much time because this, like say, I want to give a lot of opportunity to our speakers as well as to you to make some ask some question. So I request Joe to start with that, please. And I believe that you will maintain your timeline.
Yes. So half an hour? 45 minutes. No, I'm going to be very quick, and I want to apologize in advance because I will have to leave right after this. So I'm sorry about that. Where do I find my slides? No. So how was lunch for everyone? Good? Could be better? Who had dessert? Okay, so thank you, Vijay Bhai, for inviting me to speak about this. I thought, I promised my presentation would be more interesting than bullet points on slides, but I want to start with, from the Open Data Institute, their definition of what is open data. Right, so open data is data that is available for anyone to access, use, and share. It can be put out by an individual, it can be put out by an organization, it can be put out by government. It is free of royalties and restrictions, and it can be reused, modified, and shared by anyone for any purpose. Then moving a bit further into, okay, so now we have this idea of what is open data, but what is high quality open data? And again, this is information from the Open Data Institute. Right? We're talking over here, as Vijay alluded to, we're talking about data that is linkable and easily shared. It's in a standard format, so anyone will be able to access it. It is machine readable and easily processed, so not PDF. It's reliable in terms of availability and consistency. So how often is it upgraded? How much trust do people have with that data set? And the last is it's traceable to the original source. So anyone using that data set can always understand where that came from, and there's full transparency in terms of understanding how that data came about. So I actually want to start by talking about a story in Portland. In 2005, Bibiana McHugh, the lady on the left, or the only lady on the side, she was taking a trip and she was thinking about, okay, well, how do I, she was using her navigator, and you are able to understand, take a right here, take a left here, you get directions, right? And that technology has been around for a while. But what she wanted to understand was, how do I get to a point where I can get as easy directions and schedules about transit, about buses, on my phone as well? So when she came back from her vacation, she works with the TriMet, of Portland, so the transit agency at Portland. She started working on this problem, and she reached out to Chris Harrelson, who worked at Google at that time, to start thinking about, how are we going to be able to put our transit schedule data into more of the public domain so that people can start to use it to create information, usable information out of it. So Chris actually used his 20% time at Google, where you can work on any project that you want to work on. He used that 20% of his time, and they started working together. And they had a challenge, they had a number of challenges, as I'm sure a lot of transit agencies will understand this, that bus timetables are not easy. You've got a few different elements to them, and it was very, the standard that they came out with, called GTFS, had to take care of both of these elements. So they actually came out with what they called GTFS, which at that point the G stood for Google, Transit Feed Specifications. And they actually launched that data on the 7th of December in 2005. And they got a really big response. So they launched at night, and I think that next morning they saw that Europe was starting to download this data about bus schedule information in Portland in the US. Right? And then when the US market woke up, they started getting a number of hits. And it was just really so maybe a turning point for how we started to think about this space. So in 2 years, about 20 cities in the US and in Japan had opened up their data in GTFS. And just to give you a sense of, what is the reaction to what happens when they started to open up their data, right? This is a case study from Boston, Department of Transport opening up their data. Within 1 hour, Google started putting out real-time information about buses on Google Maps, right? Within 1 week, someone had created a countdown widget for your desktop. So when is their data on this site? So that was back in 2005, 2006, 2007. We got to a point where we were looking at how do you create a standard format for real-time bus data as well. And now a number of agencies around the world have also gone beyond bus data. So there's a list up there of different cities. They're not all in sort of developed countries. There's Mexico City, there's Manila, and there are a number of examples from around the world of cities that are starting to even look at some of their informal routes and thinking that how can public transport and this informal sector maybe collaborate a bit better? How do you think about bus stops? How do you think about frequency and timings? So one of the questions that Pavan told me to talk about was, when a transit agency, when a bus agency is thinking about, this sounds like a great fun thing to do, but it's a small thing to do. Why don't we just do it ourselves? Why should we open it, right? If we've got the data, we can just build the app ourselves. And what I want to do is read out a quote by, around the whole opening of data in Portland. And what the agency said was this: due to large proliferation, right? And just very quickly to look at sort of around the world, what are these case studies that are coming out? So this is Transport for London, apps from their transit feeds made by the market, 4 million downloads. And their estimates are that if TfL had to create all of those apps, which TfL would not be able to, but if they did, it would cost them up to £42 million, and it saved commuter time up to £58 million as well. Right? It's a huge value. And if you look at some of these apps, they're interesting because there's an app for someone who's colorblind. There's an app for someone who maybe needs to use the toilet. In New York, 80 plus tools rolled out. 8.5 million people using those apps, saving their time, improving their commutes. So just very quickly, I think that story of what is possible is great. I think that there are quite a few considerations around that, right? Where are you with your data right now? Is it digitized? What format is it in? What resources do you have? How do you think more about these points? Where are we in India? We do have discussions around open data. I think data.gov.in is doing a great job of starting to open up data sets. Sikkim has also an open data policy, but at least in transport, you know, the spread that we saw of how so many transit agencies started to adopt this GTFS format and how easy it was to do that, you know, I think there is a real opportunity, especially with the whole Smart City program, to start thinking about how can we take this data and enable, you know, entrepreneurs and businesses to have business models that are sustainable. So to give you an example, in the morning we were talking to a company called Drive that basically is putting up motorbikes and cycles for rent. And the question is, you know, how can we start thinking about how these bicycles and motorbikes might be located around metro stations and bus stations to enable last mile connectivity. So what we're trying to do over here is a combination of public sector and private sector sort of engagement, but through startups. So thank you.
If you have any question, please. So related to this session, because like just leave. So if you then we will continue with that in the other part.
Any question Joe can take, otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Ravi from Green Valley Energy Ventures. We are into electric mobility operating at Gurgaon. So we are currently operating 66 e-bikes, giving the last mile connectivity at Buda city. So my question is, how do we ensure the charging stations at DMRCs and public transit points there, railway stations and bus depots?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it's a very relevant question when we talk about electric mobility. I'd love to have a discussion with you, maybe on the sidelines of this discussion around open data on that specific.
And how do we get the parking spaces at these places, dedicated? And then we have plans to not only launch e-rickshaws, also electric buses, pantograph-based charging or otherwise, in cooperation with the state transport corporations and maybe PTC personnel are around. I was trying to reach out to them, but I think Delhi government had plans with a tender for about 100 EVs, but nothing has moved. And
We'll have a discussion.
Thanks,
on
you.
the sidelines.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So I request Lisa to make.
Sorry, we're having our first standardization problem during the standardization panel. I say if we can't get projectors to be standardized, I don't know what we're going to do with transport data, but we can try. Hi, I'm Nisha with DataMe. I'm based out of Bangalore. And is the BMTC still here? Okay. So DataMe is a open data community in India. We are primarily a Google group of 1,500 people across India that talk about data problems, share data, discuss civic issues that data could solve, do lots of things. We have 5 chapters across the country that meet every 6 to 8 weeks to build networks locally around the data that we use. So I was really happy to come to this because transport data has been something everyone has wanted since time eternal. Mostly around railways, to build apps, to also understand how to pick up buses, how to do all these things. I think Joe did a really good job of just describing why open data is important. I think GTFS is great. It's actually what we know and what we use. But I think for a lot of people, the formats of data can be very intimidating. So I'm going to propose that we think about an openness model first, and then we think about the standards second. Only because standards change all the time. what is up to one tech community or another tech community to decide whose standard is what. It's kind of just an internal conversation. But we sort of want to look at what information is available now and just make it open, right? We can discuss this standard or that standard or all these other things, but what's really important to us is making the data open. So we had been, I don't know what this is. Whoa. Okay. We have been kind of collecting some BMTC data for a while. And it's off the website, or whatever, just what's available there, no GPS or nothing. And just us as people who live in Bangalore, we're very curious about the bus networks, what happens there, what's the routes look like, etc. And just with the data that's available, you know, we were able to kind of make these visualizations and look at the bus routes. It's taking a while to load. And whether these are correct or not, the BMTC can verify or cannot. But just in terms of whatever data is there on the BMTC website, my BMTC, we're sort of able to kind of do these things, right? Which could help the BMTC or help people who take the bus there, or just like in terms of curiosity, kind of look at what is going on with the bus system. Because for people in Bangalore, the bus system is a little bit of a black box, right? I actually take the bus as my primary mode of transportation. And it takes quite a bit to understand how to take the bus, where to get on the bus, and where the bus is going. It takes a lot of time, effort. You're actually talking to people a good amount of time. I spend a lot of time with conductors trying to figure out where this bus is going and where I should get out. And I don't speak Kannada or Tamil, so it's very entertaining because they usually are like, I'll just push you off the bus when I decide that you should get off the bus. So we've been able to kind of do these things just with data that's available, right? And if you're looking at your systems, your GPS systems, all these things, and you're like, okay, we need to make all this data standardized and beautiful, and we're gonna get a dashboard, and we're gonna do all this stuff, and it's gonna be awesome, and then everyone's gonna take the bus, and it's gonna be great. It's gonna take forever for you to get there, right? But you don't have to do these things on your own if you just open up the data. Even if the standards aren't interoperable yet, you're exposing the problems and allowing more people to come and participate in the problem, right? Which I think is what open data does really well, especially in the Indian context, is that you actually want to invite people to help you standardize and make things interoperable and make things communicate with one another by making it everybody's problem, not just one transport agency's problem. You know, if we are a group of people, most of us probably don't take the bus, and we're still doing this kind of stuff, right, in our free time, then I think there's enough interest that we'll actually be willing to work with you and help you, or just like want to look at the data that you have anyway, right? Even if it's not talking to each other, then you have people that are like, why isn't this data talking to each other? How can we help you make this systems better? Or how can we consult with you on what formats make sense for us, right? Because like I said, I take the bus primarily, and it's just from standing at bus stops and talking to people, right? Technology has aided me 0% in getting to know the bus network of Bangalore, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't have to be something you keep closed off until it's ready, until it's finished, until it's a final product. You don't have to hide behind the final product. You can just expose the data in any format you currently have, and if they're super proprietary, then that's another problem. But if you just make it a default open policy, right, then you can start a conversation with the people who are using these services, and you can actually get to a solution much faster than to wait, meet with everybody who comes and say, I have this great system you should use, I have this other great system you should use, I have this system you should use. Because the war over proprietary software, GPS, and data is still going on, right? You guys get a lot more meetings than I do about some product that you should use. And we don't even use a product, I mean, we just kind of, whatever is available at whatever people prefer is what we're using, right? Because we're a volunteer network. So I just want to also point out that we have a transport working group. We have an open data manifesto that the community has kind of brought together. And there is a formats part, which is somewhere down here. But it's not even the most important part, right? Again, formats are sort of this thing that we can work out, but it's all this information that we want to be able to access that I know that several of you guys have. So if you make it available, we can do enough with it until we get to the point where formats is a huge problem. So those are my big things actually. Okay, cool. So I just wanted to show that if you look at the data that you have and you say, let me make this open first, right? Before you have to go through the process of making it beautiful and clean and accessible to all. You can actually get there much faster than working with one vendor or two vendors and trying to make sure you guys are in the end, with the Indian context, you're not going to have all the answers, and everyone expects that. And you're not going to have all the data. So what's happening now is that I get a call every few months from people who are creating apps and who are startups or coming from the US or Europe with their apps, and there's not enough data for them. So they're going through the process of collecting their own data. So a lot of this data is being locked into new systems, even though they're more open than old systems, that are complementary to public data. So it's best to make everything open so that everyone can use it or at least know it's there, instead of continuously locking data away into proprietary software or situations that will go away at some point and the data is lost. Sorry, I haven't been keeping track of time. I'm still okay though. Okay. And so I want to just put out there that you should think of openness first. Then we can work on standards. Then we can work on presentation. Then we can work on reaching everybody. And throughout the process, everyone can be included. It doesn't have to wait for the government or whoever controls the data to feel like it's ready. It's ready now. It might not be perfect, but that's okay. There are other people here to help you, so make it everybody's problem so that we can. Thank you.
Thanks. We say keep a special session or question and answer. So I continue with this, and I request Mr. Anand, because what we are doing, we are collecting the data, but and how we even it's an open forum, and then what we really require to put in practice. So the they have the wide kind of experiences, he's working with the Hyderabad urban space, lab space. So he will share his experiences and lectures first. Thank you.
Just begin by saying it's been an incredibly important learning experience for me being in this meeting this morning. I want to put a caveat right at the beginning. I'm not a data person. I'm actually a social scientist who works mostly with qualitative methods, and I am the head of an institution called Hyderabad Urban Lab. We started Hyderabad Urban Lab with the idea that there is a need now to do rigorous urban research, but not be completely tied down by academic protocols. And what we started doing was really experimenting with a lot of research methods and experimenting with training young people in doing research. And there's a whole lot of energy that came out of that because people are excited about doing different kinds of things in cities. And we pretty much stumbled into this world of data. Because anything that you touch in the city turns into a question of data. We often get people from all kinds of institutions walking into our office and asking us for data. And we often tell them that the data actually doesn't exist. For example, almost every month we have people walking into our office asking us how much waste does Hyderabad city produce, ward by ward. The data doesn't exist. What we actually know is a thumb rule by which we know that per capita waste production in India is 500 grams, and we have some kind of a vague sense that between the two censuses, our population is somewhere around 8 million, and therefore it has to be around 4,000 metric tons. That 4,000 metric tons gets cited so many times that it becomes the truth. We really don't know what the actual truth is. But this is not just about the waste, it's about everything, right? So what we started doing was actually to try and build our own technologies of mapping and data capturing, and try and start actually building things from the bottom up. And a lot of our work in transportation actually happened pretty much by accident when one recent graduate of engineering walked into our office. He apparently worked on some kind of a ticketing machine system as his undergraduate thesis project. He walked in and said that I want to build a smartphone app for buses. And we said, we don't know where the bus stops are. We don't know where the bus routes are. So he said, normally people just go away when you tell them something like that because they don't want to waste their time. But this student said, so I want to make a map, how do I make it? So we then said that let's go and get all the lists from the RTC, State Road Transport Corporation, and start putting pins on the map. And literally pin by pin by pin, he mapped all the bus stops, bus routes, everything, and started running algorithms on that to try and figure out what are the transit corridors in the city, what are the transit deserts in the city, how are people in those transit deserts actually moving. You have a large space which is not covered by buses. Does it mean that people there are actually traveling by cars? Does it mean that they are traveling by auto rickshaws, or does it mean that they don't travel at all? And then we put out an open call for crowdsourcing information on how people move in those areas. And within a matter of 2 hours, 120 shared auto rickshaw routes were reported. These are standardized routes which don't exist in any official map, but we know what volume of people are actually moving on those roads. Now, having stumbled into this world of data and openness, we started asking a lot of questions because by training, as I said, I'm a social scientist, and they keep wondering what's happening with data and why things happen in a particular way. One of the things that has always bothered us is that there's a tremendous amount of reproduction of past work in all our cities. Everybody does the same survey again and again and again and again. You go to a slum and want to do a survey, the people living in that slum know exactly what they said in the last survey, and they give the answers. They can even tell you that your survey form is wrong, you missed out 2 questions. You can do that. It's the same thing with transportation, it's the same thing with waste, it's the same thing with everything. I think the reason why so much of time and energy is wasted in collecting data like this is because there are royalties to be collected, rents to be collected in this place. Data that is collected once is not released to the public, it is not easily updated, it is not easily corrected. Proprietary data that is provided by companies, people who do research for producing that kind of survey data, give you a snapshot of the data and they're not going to update you for the next time. And until it is like that, there's time for doing, money for doing more surveys. Also, so long as this is held in one place, you can keep producing more and more work around this. Now here is the question. If we open up data, it leads to innovation. That is what Jyot was saying. If you think about the city and transportation and mobility, why do people come to cities? They come to cities because agglomeration, coming together, has positive externalities. It makes certain kinds of things possible. It produces resources. That's why people come to the city. But once they come into the city, whether to run a huge company or to work in a company as a menial worker, if they are not able to go to their schools on time, if they are not able to go to their work on time, if they're falling sick because of all the air pollution on the streets, then you are actually creating huge inefficiencies in the economy. So there is a reason why transportation has to be efficient, safe, and healthy, and actually provide opportunities for economic opportunities for people. How do we do that? So if we take the open transit data, that problem, and map it onto this problem, then it becomes a very interesting political challenge. The question then is, who wants to standardize data, who wants to open up data, or who doesn't want to standardize data, who doesn't want to open up data, for what reasons? What happens if we open it up? What happens if we don't open it up? What happens when I make myself available as the source of data for some large system that I don't understand? Technologically, it is possible today to track any bus, any vehicle, anywhere. It's been used by ordinary small private schools for their buses. It's not that difficult. It's very, very easy to do it. But why are the bus systems not able to do it, and why don't they do it? One of the first things that we discovered is that it is often resisted by bus conductors and drivers. The reason why they would resist it is because their work itself has not been rationalized. You're supposed to do a certain number of trips in a given day, and the rush hour problem, which is the most wicked problem for transportation across the world, no city in this world has solved it, even after Uber. Even after Uber. San Francisco, which requires 4,000 cabs on Saturday night, on Friday night, today has 12,000 cars on the street offering to provide cab services. It's not a solution to the rush hour problem, it's actually creating a new rush hour problem. We haven't quite figured out how to do this. In that kind of a situation, bus drivers want to skip bus stops. Now we can geofence them and say that, look, you cannot beat me, I'm going to get your data wherever you are. But at the end of the day, you're going to produce a very unhappy driver and a very unsafe driver. So if we have to think about open data, if we have to think about standardization, if we have to think about economic opportunities and efficiencies, then we can only do that by looking at what kinds of institutions have we built, who is benefiting from what in this, how much of it is rational and even wise. In Hyderabad city, for example, in all of the work that we have done, we find that there are 150,000 auto rickshaws on the street at any given time. 150,000 auto rickshaws means, if you take an average of 4 people for family, we're talking about 6 lakh people. That's 1/10 of the city's population dependent on informal transit solutions. You take another 6 lakhs of people who are commuting by auto rickshaws to make a living. That's 20% of the city's population. Crucially dependent on auto rickshaws because you don't have last mile connectivity and first mile connectivity for the public transit system. That has created opportunities for people. We don't know what to do with them. If we reduce their numbers, they are going to suffer. If we make it difficult for them, they are going to suffer. Other people are going to suffer. If we don't plan our first mile, last mile connectivities carefully, then you will have a problem. How do we solve these wicked problems? So what I want to propose is that these kinds of problems can be solved to some degree by saying that data is, to a large extent, an artifact of politics and artifact of people's attitudes towards things. Each piece of data is a story. How many slums do you have in Hyderabad city? The number is determined very often by the amount of money that is going to be invested in slum improvement. That's when you actually notify the slums, otherwise you don't notify the slums. So there's a story for each number that we work with. How many hours, how many people are moving where, and so on and so forth. So if we pay attention to those things and we start creating insights into what is going on in our cities through data, through visualization, so on and so forth, it actually becomes necessary at some point of time for people to talk to each other. If we do not create those conditions for people to talk to each other, if the bus drivers are willing to jump bus stops so that they can make enough number of trips to keep their jobs and take home that salary, that's a problem that needs to be addressed within that institution. If that institution is not willing to address that problem, then open data is not going to work. Whether it is going to be stopped by the RTC drivers or whether it is going to be stopped by the managers of the data who do not quite know what to do with the data that they are collecting. Because you really have no purpose for the data that is being collected, which is the reason why we see a huge proliferation of data sets of all kinds, a huge amount of money being spent on digitizing data, but none of it really adds up to anything meaningful and significant in any of our cities. Very often you find that there are thousands and thousands of people sitting in offices, typing away at computers, translating data which is written in pencils on their charts by conductors, bus drivers, bus controllers, so on and so forth, into computers. We often make visits to bus stops, bus depots, bus conductors, drivers, and they all keep asking us, so we are writing all this, it's all being digitized, what happens to this? Nobody has an answer. Nobody has an answer as to why we are producing Excel spreadsheets of such huge magnitude. And this is not just something which is happening inside one institution, right? This is also happening between and among institutions, in the sense that one of the interesting things that we found when we did the analysis of the bus routes in Hyderabad city was that all of the trunk routes of the RTC, which is the routes on which the Road Transport Corporation is making the maximum amount of money, and which is make the buses go off the streets through some legal mechanism, or you will have to bring down the metro price or shoot up the RTC bus fare to a point where people will move from buses into the metro, otherwise it's not going to happen. Now, if the RTC has no sense of what this challenge is, or if it has a sense of what this challenge is and do not know how to deal with it, they don't have the institutional capacity, no amount of open data and standardization is going to help. So I feel that there is a lot of work that needs to be done by civil society organizations, by trusts and foundations and so on, organizations like WRI-India, organizations which do not have an immediate stake in the rents that can be collected from it, do not have stakes in keeping institutions in this kind of a moribund status. Only when we can push from outside that governments, agencies will actually begin to develop that strength. One of the things that I often keep hearing in many conferences with architects and planners is that, people keep talking about governments outsourcing work. One of the bizarre things that has happened in the last 20 years is that governments seem to have outsourced their intelligence to consultants. And I don't believe that consultants can do these jobs for governments. It has to be done from inside the government. And governments will have to build those capacities inside government organizations, and only then they will have answers to these kinds of problems.
Thanks a lot, sir. It's a very interesting, because like say our session itself is very interesting. We have a wide range. It's like say architect to like say the sociologist, good fabrics of that, like, and what we have to see, and rightly he has pointed out the overlapping in the certain services and what will be like say impact at the end of the day. Even like say I was just saying his the case study about Hyderabad, and I was remembering that the Denmark story. And the Denmark DRT is the one of the success story. What we say in the country, the metro that is mega, that line exactly falls on the same line. So what will happen to that? End of the day, like say a success story, you're instead of like say widening that, whether you will like say put in the shadow stage or not. And very important thing that we have to see that whether the open data is helpful to us and up to what extent, and really what we are doing, and we are rightly putting the open data in the right way. And our next session is the, like say, about GTFS. That is what we want to learn out of it. So before that, the same, like say, the person, fortunately, we have Neeraj with us, and he is the director Behal Softech, who is helping the Bhopal City Link Limited to get this, like say, data, and up to what extent and how it can be useful. So I request Neeraj, he will also develop some kind of foundation for our next session also. So, Neeraj, please.
I am director of Tile Software, and I work with Bhopal City Link Limited, helping their data, getting their data standardized. So all these initiatives we are talking about right here, all the comments we are talking about. So here what we are going to do is, we are trying to have an interactive activity where we will try to tell you how easy it is to get your data, whatever data you have as of now, in a very specific format which is open and people understand it. What I am talking about is a developer's perspective. As a developer, where I run a studio and we make all kind of apps, and how is data that this data is useful. Once you get the data out, there are different kind of developers like me who can think of interesting applications. Right? You have your own data, take it, and they use it in different ways. So what I am trying to tell you in this presentation is how do you take the first step towards this, getting your data out of your own systems and open to public. Right, so okay, so what exactly is GTFS? GTFS is a open data format for transit schedules. As George pointed out, it was started by Transnet in sometime in mid-2000, and it stands for General Transit Format Specification. Initially, it used to be Google Transit Format Specification, but they made it open and made it general. So it is a format used by all kinds of agencies across the world to get data out, and primarily used by Google Maps. Now, whatever data you put out, Google Maps directly picks it up and start showing that whatever data you have put out to general public, whoever is searching, can see what are the different modes of transports available in the game. Apart from that, this same data is used by various developers, that is web developers, mobile developers, there are trip planners, there are apps to provide you this information. So what this format is all about is you get whatever data you have and convert it into files which the systems understand, systems of various agencies who are developing apps understand. Now, let me move ahead. Yeah. So this is what we did for BCL, and now you can see on Google Maps, we go to Google Maps, it will show you if you want to go from point A to point B, what are the routes, what are the options available, what are the buses available, when do they run, what are the schedules. This all information is live and available to you now. The same thing can be done for every agency, any agency who is having that data, and it is easy enough. So, if you want to implement GTFS, it is just basic 4 steps. You collect data of your organization or agency. This is basic data as a shipper will come to us. You do some sort of data entry in a system, you export it and you share it. That's it. It is as easy. So what is the data required from an agency's perspective? Basic information of agency, what your agency is all about, what is the agency name, where people can contact you, what is your website address, etc. etc. You require information on bus stops. You can have stop information in local language as well as English. Right? English is the default language, but if you want the information to level to people in your local language, that is very much possible. And you do require GPS information for latitude and longitude bus stop. So most of the times, if your organization is utilizing GPS of any kind, tracking of any kind, this information could be available in your system somewhere. You do require route information. So what is your route? From which stop does your buses start and where do they go? You require a schedule to go on Sunday where let's say there should be a weekend schedule for your services. There could be a weekend schedule for your services. On Sunday there could be some other services running. So there could be all kind of possibilities there. And optionally you can put up fare information. So I just want to show you how we do this in practice. So while working with BCLL, we developed this software. Now this software, in spirit of open, this software is also open source. So any agency wants to use it, they can just ask me and you can have it. But the idea is just to, as we were just saying, we collected information regarding the agency itself. So it's Bhopal City Link Limited. This is the basic information you need to input in the system. Update it, it's done. So this is how you had stopped. Can you make it until someone has laptop? Someone wants to try it? Simple. Okay, I'll just go through it. So if you want to add stop, it is as simple. This is the basic information required. So just type.
Are we able to import from Excel?
Yeah, you can. In case of BCLL, actually that's what we did. They gave this information in Excel and we imported it. But this is the software some new agencies want to do it, try it. You can try it. And if you want, I can do it for you. You just give me Excel sheets and I can get it up in programs. So this is the kind of information you can input. Let's say this particular stop is wheelchair friendly or not. You can put up that information. It's already there. So next time there is some change, you can directly go there again, do a export of the files and submit to Google again. So your information have taken there. It's that simple. This is all it takes to take your data open and to Google and various developers. Now once this is done, you create a link, something like this. Where all your data is. Okay. So you host it somewhere on a server where developers can take it directly from. Google also picks the files from here directly. So once I update, I update all these files in a single server. My software does it directly. So any developer wants to take these files, he can just go to this link and take it. And use it in app, games, or app, whatever you want to do with it. So there are interesting things they can do. There are multi-model agencies. There are apps which do multi-agency transport to provide information from. So all this can be used directly from it. So that's it. Any questions?
Thanks. So, this floor is open for questions. What I will do, I will like.
First, do you have to pay anything to Google for hosting it? Number two, who owns the data? And number three, go to sign any agreement with Google.
You don't need to pay anything to Google. It's totally free. That is part one.
Dheeraj, can keep your mind.
Yeah. So part one is don't need anything to pay to Google. Just need to sign an agreement with them. which says you are providing the data to themselves. So there's a standard format agreement. You may go to Google Translate, you can download and see the agreement. You need to sign the agreement, but there is no cost involved. And what was the third thing?
Who owns the data?
The agency owns the data.
Can you share it with other people also?
Yeah. Agency owns the data. The owner of the data is the agency.
Google also owns.
Sorry?
Google also owns.
No.
They don't share revenue.
No, they does not own it. The data is owned by the agency.
They can use it for their own revenue.
Yeah, they can.
It's
Most definitely money from.
openness for Google. It is openness for Google. Your data is making money.
Once it is on Google, any app developer can share it.
Yeah, as I showed you, there is a process where there is a long process where you take this data to Google. One of the components is you host it somewhere publicly. So any developer can directly download from there. It's open.
My question is to the whole panel. Have you evaluated any other models? Like there used to be anywhere, there used to be others. And about Google Maps, this data being available in Google Maps. Google Maps is a proprietary product of Google. So there are open geospatial consortium, there are open street maps. Is there a format or is there a transit feed? And today we have evaluated GTFS, there are limitations with it. And is there a format which will look at public transport as a whole? Because it looks at only GIS and schedules. But when we look at providing quality information, it is about fares, it is about dynamic fares, it is about availability of seats. Is there a format or is there a standard which is being evaluated to take care of all that?
Okay, so part one is the GTFS format is a evolving standard. It's not set in stone as of today. It's a evolving standard. Like for
Have you
example,
evaluated anyone else? Open Journey, Journey Web 2.0?
I haven't evaluated because the thing was the mandate we got, the reason we started working on this was the agency wanted to take their data to Google Maps because that was the application being used by most of their users. So the reason where to GTFS
For the user to use. If you have a mobile application, they'll use that application. You are forcing them to go to Google Maps.
No, we are not. The whole point is we did not make an application out of it. There are 6 different developers who developed applications made on this particular data. We did not develop any application.
We have not actually looked at the format, but it's something that I think people in the community of data meet have actually done. So I don't know, but we can come up with an answer and send it out. That would work? Okay.
So can you show us some live demonstration of this GTFS?
Actually, the next session is a small activity session which we will do. So we'll complete the Q&A and then we'll get into the activity session where we are actually will have some laptops on the table and we can enter the data and play around with that. But we'll take Q&A also.
But for your question, right, you open Google Maps just now and search for any bus in New Delhi. You get
I can see the bus stop but not the moving buses.
it's not real time.
There's
The
only
packet
static.
you are using should not be real time.
Is it a static data?
CT where it has been implemented.
It's both.
Not in India. Real time is not.
Not anywhere in the world.
US you can see. Portland you can check out. Yeah. I can show it to you just after that.
So I have technical questions. Do you need to forecasting the travel time? Because you know when the next bus arrives at the station, so you need based on the traffic condition to forecast. And another one, do you know? Can you advise me the transfer time from this route to another route on some which stations better to transfer? That's a technical question.
No, I do not do that. I do not do that.
Just repeat it because like, there is a gap what you are mentioning here.
Trip planning. Trip planning.
Yeah.
Because if I want to know the next bus arrive at the station, you
Yeah.
need the forecasting, the road traffic situation, then you can.
That is possible through Google real time, GTFS real time, but unfortunately for that to work, you will require real time information which needs to come from GPS installed on buses. Now the cases we have seen, most of the buses there are no GPS involved.
But you can just give you the existing situations.
Yeah,
You need the forecasting the next 2 or 3 minutes.
You just take schedule part, yes, that is possible. That is possible. For transfer, we are talking of transfer. So I am transferring from a single line to another line.
Okay.
There is a transfer involved, right?
Okay.
You are talking about that? Yeah, that is possible.
Okay,
I can
one more
give you in 2
question.
minutes or 3 minutes or whatever.
Okay, another question is how you make profit? How you make revenue? Some service is paid by the user, or you use
How
to
much
make money.
did it cost to you?
This particular thing, the software, as I said, itself is free, open source. So anyone needs it, they can just ask. I can give it to them. What we the money you are talking about was charged for the services we provide, where we collected this data, moved it to format. So somewhere in the range of 3-4 lakhs Indian rupees, in that range, depending how big the agency is, how many stops are there. But for agencies like of Bhopal, where they have around 300 stops, right, 8 or 10 lines, different lines running, that's what it was.
My question, I'm Varun from WRI. My question is from Mr. Anand. You spoke about lack of institutional capacity. Has your qualitative research so far shown that this data revolution is causing, is it building up institutional capacity in any way? Or?
I think there's a lot of churning going on in all government agencies. I don't know if it has resulted in any crystallization of capacities as yet. I think one of the things that a lot of government agencies really struggle with is making decisions on whom to trust and whom not to trust, what services, what products to buy and what not to buy. And they usually go by some personal contact of the officer involved. That's pretty much how it works. And I'm saying this because I have often been in senior government officials' offices, and I have found that the people who are advising them from private companies, they're clueless about what they're advising them on. So, which is the reason why I'm saying that it is really important to build capacities or intelligence, bring intelligence back into the government itself. Because those are the people who are supposed to be responsible for, those are the people who should be the custodians of this data. And I don't believe that our governments are not capable of doing it. I mean, we have run the Indian railways, we have run the Indian posts and telegraph, we have run massive bus systems across the country. We have the capacities. I think there is some kind of a bizarre amnesia that has struck us, whereby we are going on repeatedly saying that governments do not have the capacities. They have the possibility to have the capacities. It's just that there's a learned helplessness, and that has to be gotten rid of. Technology is nothing. I'm just saying in a very simple, bland way. Walk out onto the street. Any private school is capable of today geofencing its buses. Anybody is capable of doing these things. We actually did this entire bus data for Hyderabad city without, of course, the real-time tracking, which also I'm sure if you want to, we can do. You don't want to step into that curve, but it's not difficult to do it. It's so easy to contract with 50 people and say that get into the buses with your mobile phone app switched on and I'm tracking your buses. It will not cost anything at all to do that. It will not cost me anything at all to get together a group of college students, give them internship certificates at the end of 1 month, and get them to produce huge amounts of data. It's possible to do that. Government agencies are not confident enough to be able to get these things done. And I think that's the key question. Why don't they have the confidence?
Okay, last question, please, because we have time.
My question is on the format of the data. So, for example, if you want to bring the data from the GPS directly, and also the boardings from the ETM somewhere, whether, because you have shown us in a particular different format, because you are picking probably manual thing. But most of the cities are going to have GPS now, so whether your software takes care of that.
Yeah, what we did, the practical implementation we did was we actually imported the data from the data already existing in different systems. But this software was just a showcase. This is so simple. It's not the idea. We work with any agencies, they have their own data in different formats already existing. So tomorrow you want to import from some system or the other, you already have an existing, that is very much possible.
So thanks a lot for your continuous like say efforts to learn something, and we will continue with that part. And I request Pawan to lead for the next session where we will learn more about this software and how we can use it.
When we go live on GTFS, does it show the ETA of the particular bus?
Let's say you have defined a trip. Now you say my bus starts from this particular stop and this time.
Yeah.
Based on that time, your ETA is.
We have to feed in the average travel time or?
Right here, when you are feeding in the route, you are feeding in the trip, you say this bus starts from this particular stop at this time. Right?
Yeah.
And it is supposed to come to the next stop at Connaught Place at this time, particular time. When you are giving an ETA, you are based on this.
This fixed.
So this is not dynamic.
This is not dynamic. See, dynamic is possible. GPFS has real-time capability. But for that to happen, you need to have GPS system in all your whatever buses you are having.
So we have installed the GPS in our buses. If we give the live feed of those GTFS files, so how the ETA is calculated by the Google, which algorithm?
Google has their own algorithm, and you could develop your own algorithm also. Like,
For us, in this case, we give the information to Google, right? They give you this ETA. We are not doing any calculation on our.
No, in our latest developed apps, no, in our customized apps, we take the data, previous data, previous operations for the last 6 months, or 3 months, something like that.
And on that particular day, there might be traffic.
No, that's not. That's the reason. It's only estimated, not expected. That's all. There's no guarantee. The time it says the estimated time of arrival. That's all. Nobody can assure that.
If we operate the navigation application on our mobile phone, the ETA goes on changing as per our speed in last 10 minutes.
Yes.
It is a dynamic, it goes on changing. So whether it happens in this case also?
Google Maps does not happen that way.
They do exactly that.
It will? He is saying it will happen.
So in this case, when you do our personal travel times,
yeah,
the estimated time changes by time of the day and everything.
This question is reference to this schedule itself, right?
No, the schedule will not change. So he's talking about real-time data. If you are seeing the real-time data, it will change.
In that case also the real-time data would be coming from the GPS of the bus, not
Yes.
how you are traveling.
Yes, yes.
He is doing the practice.
Any other question? You had a question.
Whichever city you are on. It's the same question.
Static data. This is static data.
On your schedule.
Yeah, on your schedule.
So the schedule will never change. Schedule is one time fixed.
Yeah.
Once you give the real-time feed, then it will give you, and once you give the real-time feed to the application, whether it is Google or whether it is third-party application.
Suppose I am waiting at a bus stop and I see a particular bus coming to this direction. Whether it shows the ETA,
Yes.
it is a scheduled ETA or a dynamic ETA?
That is a dynamic ETA.
No,
Schedule is not ETA. Schedule is the actual time, so you cannot call it ETA. It is a time. The ETA is always dynamic.
actually, we have developed an app. In that, scheduled time is also there. Expect time is also there. That is a customized app. No, in the app you can have so many facilities.
You are from?
No, we are APSRTC. We are implementing then mobile app.
Buses going to the airport or even for that matter any city, then does it take into the algorithms that are developed, does it take into consideration which is the first available bus? Because they may be they may be coming from different parts of the city, and then some stretch becomes like the commonality. On the common stretch, when I'm as a passenger standing, does it give me I know we don't have yet that kind of a system, but the information will give what is the next bus available to the particular destination, or is it going to be by route specific? I mean, any thoughts on that?
See, if you see the Pucho app, which is there for the cluster, it is giving you in a multiple ways. So So you can select the route and then it will give you the route wise. It can show you where the bus is on the map also. So it can show you. Or if you want to do it by stop wise, then you can take that data. So since the buses are there on the GPS, it can really work it out whatever way you wish to do it.
So it has been favored that.
Yeah. Pucho is there. And we have not only developed the bus application, but also the parking auto rickshaw is also attached with that. So it's a comprehensive app.
Because I know BMTC was developing that.
So, Pawan, there are two things that are commonly seen as we heard. So there is one route-wise search. So when you do a route-wise search, then you get the buses of the same route, or you do it as per the stop-wise search, and it will give you the list of all the buses that are reaching that stop.
That's a question. If I do the stop-wise, which route is which information the person will get?
So like if you see the app either IMSS or the RTC, then when you look for, when you give your GPS location, the current location, so it will find the nearest stop and then you select the stop. It will tell you what are the next 3 buses that are coming to that stop, irrespective of the route.
You need to give from one to we have to give. From stop and to stop.
This is Android.
Then only you give the next 5 buses and 10 buses, whatever you want.
I can show you one.
A couple of colleagues were here yesterday, and maybe I'm not aware about this, but is the transit data of say DTC, is it open? Because I know the Pucho app is pretty well equipped to do a lot of things, but I'm not sure whether that data is open. And if it is open, has it been hosted on data.gov.in?
First thing is, so we are almost tracking something like 100,000 vehicles a day now, and this data is on the auto rickshaws, taxis, water tankers, and the cluster buses. So DTC system is not cluster buses. Cluster buses is all managed by the DIMS.
Okay.
So all these data is not related with the DTC. DTC has their own, so they don't have GPS. They have limited, I think, 200 buses. But this data right now is not opened by the government for this. And that's all the discussion is, that when they will open.
Is there a reason for that? Has this conversation?
I can't say that, but that's a government policy. Finally, when everybody will agree to that, because that's not in our context. So we are doing internal data analytics of our own for optimizing our efficiency of our system. But we have also created these apps which are free. For example, you want now auto rickshaw right here on IC. You can call from that app directly here. So all the auto rickshaws, 50,000 auto rickshaws. So in the neighboring area, whosoever are free, their phone numbers you can just track here. You can call them right from here. So what we are doing is converting that into the information and giving it back to the people. But when it will be open, that's a government actually has to decide. We can't decide.
So I'm just wondering if there's a conversation that's been initiated around it.
Only on these forums, not with us.
So we'll be So we'll be going for a site visit to DTC's control center at the Millennium Depot. So we'll leave at 7:30 from Hotel Hans for the depot, and there will be the site visit from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. where the DTC will show how they actually operate the buses using the GPS, and so we'll see the control center. So I will urge you to be actually ready by 7:30 so that we can then leave for the site visit. It will be a 1-hour site visit, and from there we'll get back to the hotel, and then maybe you can check out and then come to ISC. So we'll have the taxis and the buses ready for you, but just to inform you that we'll be leaving for the site at 7:30 tomorrow morning.
And for people staying in other hotels, because we know we have guests in Chorus and
Chorus, that's all.
yeah, and I think in one more hotel also.
Chorus not there. Royal Plaza.
Royal Plaza also. So we will actually have people. Will provide access to come to Hans, and we all will go in a bus from Hans to the field visit. And also, actually, in fact, tomorrow I would really urge. There are a lot of interesting sessions. We have IT director of BMTC is going to be here tomorrow to talk about the challenge, and Mr. Vivek Ogra also on the challenges that ITS ideal challenges that STUs are facing. Then we'll also have a session around bus aggregator. This is like becoming a very hot discussion on how the new models are coming up and how STUs can see this as a complementary service. So we'll have a session around that as well.